Hey everyone, it's Natalie, also known as Knitty Natty. Welcome to episode 180 of the Love and Stitches podcast. Spring is finally here in New York and it is warm. It went from like 50s and rainy and wet, and it was like cold 50s last week, to now being 75 and sunny, and I am sweltering here in our apartment. We have the fortune to have these beautiful all glass, like floor to ceiling windows, but it really makes our apartment feel like a magnifying glass. So when there's hot weather, you may see me like filming the podcast in segments so that I can turn the air conditioning on in between. You may not even really notice, but just FYI, that's probably what's going to be going on in the background. Before we begin, I want to say a huge thank you to today's podcast sponsor, Book of the Month. I am such a big reader. Every single morning, I love to start my day with 30 minutes of knitting and reading. It is literally the thing that gets me up in the morning, gets me going, and gets me excited for my day. The tricky part for me is figuring out what to read next, and that's where Book of the Month comes in. Book of the Month's mission is to help readers discover new books while promoting new and emerging authors. So here's how it works. Each month, the editorial team reads through hundreds of new titles. They pick out 5 to 7 of the best new books for me to choose from. And all of the books are vetted, so I cannot go wrong. On the first of the month, I just go to bookofthemonth.com and select 1 to 3 books from the curated selection. Then my beautiful hardcover books are delivered straight to me with the Book of the Month seal of approval. I cannot even tell you how hard of a time I had choosing my books this month because there were so many good ones, but I decided to go with kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum. For my first pick, I went with something really lighthearted, Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. It is a lighthearted rom-com romance kind of a thing. I learned in April with The Only Survivors that I love a thriller. So for my second book of the month, I went with The Last Word by Taylor Adams, which is a spooky, kind of creepy mystery type of book. I love that I can see all of the details about a book at a glance, so that just means the hardest part is picking which book you're going to read. Book of the Month also makes it really easy to manage my subscription from the app. I can select my books from there, or I can even skip a month if I'm behind on my reading. I love not having to wonder what I'm going to read next. I can just pick out one of the best new books with the swipe of my fingertips. Go to bookofthemonth.com to sign up, and for a very limited time, you can get your first book for just $5 using the code FLOWERS. I have a new project this week, and I am so excited to share it that we're just going to start with that. I have finally started Toaster's blanket. So back in January, when I made a plan for Scrap Free 2023, I had all these blankets that I wanted to finish and all these advent skeins, mini skeins that I wanted to work with. And so I've been slowly ticking things off, and I have finished 2 blankets so far, maybe a third. No, actually, I'm just going to tell you now. I haven't finished Quadrophenia yet, but it's so close. But my plan was after Quadrophenia to finally start a blanket that was dedicated to Toaster. And so I'm so excited that I am finally making it. He has pretty much been stealing all the blankets that I have knit and crocheted, which is fine. But by the way, Toaster is here with us today. I just forgot to put his blanket here to bait him to the side, so he's over there. And if I don't put his blanket down here, he doesn't come over there. So oops, my mistake. Maybe I'll move it sometime later. Okay, so let's talk about this blanket. I have so much to tell you about it because it's the start of a new thing, and I have to tell you all about the colors and everything like that. But let me just start with the pattern, and I'll just show you what I've got here so far. Ta-da! Okay, so this is called the Crochet Advent Baby Blanket Did I get that right? Yeah, Crochet Advent Baby Blanket. So if you're searching for anything like that, you can't miss it. And it is by Lucienne Crochet. So I've got a project page already started with tons of notes and tons of photos. I am trying to be so thorough and so detailed on these things so that I don't forget a single thing that I do, just in case I make something like this in the future or somebody else wants to make something similar. So I promise you there's so many things in there that I'm going to forget to say today that are in the project page. This pattern is really, really great. If you're a crocheter, you might be wondering like, well, I know how to do chevrons. Well, I don't know how to do chevrons, so I really appreciated the very thorough pattern. I also really liked that it came in 2 PDFs, one with UK terms and one with US terms. I learned to crochet with US terms. I'm here in the United States, so of course I made sure to download that one, but I just think it's a really nice touch so that you don't have to do conversions in your head. If you are unfamiliar with this, literally the United States and I guess some other countries, I don't really know this for a fact actually, but at least the US, we use the same terms that other people use, like single crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, except it means something different here than it does in the UK, for example. So as if it couldn't be any more confusing. So it's nice that those are separated. There was also just like really good notes about how the pattern was going to come out, how to use your colors, and it is actually made for a 24 mini skein set with one main color. And I'm making a change in that, so I'll talk details about that in just a second. But yeah, I just can't say enough good things about the pattern. I think it's really, really well written. Oh, hold on. I've dropped my yarn. So let's talk about the yarn now, because it was kind of a big ordeal getting this project started because I wanted to do it right. So the yarn I'm using is another advent calendar from Fangirl Fibers, but this one is a Pokemon advent calendar. It was from July, I think 2022. I think it was just last year. And there are 31 20-gram mini skeins. So instead of doing 24 colors with the main color in between, I'm just gonna go straight through my 31 colors with no little main color break in between. So that's one kind of big change that I'm making to this blanket. So I'm really excited about that. And I spent a lot of time getting everything organized into my big blanket bag. This has been in use since January, since I did my first granny stripe blanket, and then I worked the granny square blanket, and then I just pulled Quadrophenia out of it. It's just loose and it doesn't really need a project bag because it's kind of a bag. I don't know, you'll see in just a second. But I wanted to get everything set up for this new blanket. So I enlisted the help of Kent again to help me with the colors. And I've got everything organized by groups of 5 into baggies like this. You really don't need to see all of that. But I do have a picture. So this photo is all of the advent colors grouped into groups of 5. The reason it's grouped into groups of 5 is that the advent set came in a way that it was different types of Pokemon like all in a row. So 5 normal type Pokemon, and then 5 fire type Pokemon, and then electric, and then water. I don't know, I'm not getting the order exactly right, but it kind of came grouped like that. And when you see that photo, you can see that the colors go together in the groups of 5, but they also transition well, I think, to the next color. So because of that, I've just decided to have the blanket be the original order, except for one skein. So there was one skein at the very end that I think was called like Gotta Catch 'Em All, or it didn't have a name or something like that. And it's a blue-green color. And so I decided to move it into where I have blues and greens in the groups of 5 and just insert it in there. And I think it looks really, really pretty. So I believe I've got another photo here. We took so many pictures of things, but that just shows the top of the blanket all the way down to the bottom. Actually, it's like from the top of the photo, it's gonna be the bottom of the blanket, and then so I guess it's the opposite order, but that's the order that everything is gonna be in. So essentially, I'm keeping it in original order from how I opened it, except for that one last skein, because it looked kind of funny to have like all the pinks and then like a blue and a green again. I just moved the blue and the green where it looked like it fit in with everything. So I'm really, really happy with how that is coming out. Something I'm doing a little differently this time is I am kind of over hand winding my mini skeins. It was kind of a nice ritual for the last blanket that I did for Quadrophenia. It kind of felt like I got to break up the knitting by stopping and winding things. I also got to learn how to hand wind center pull cakes, which was really nice, but I'm over it. I'm done. I need a break from hand winding. So this time I'm like, well, there's already groups of 5. Why don't I wind things 5 at a time? So this is my first color here, and then I've already got the other the next 4 already wound up and put into little cakes, which is great. So basically I didn't wind these by hand. I wound them with my ball winder. That would make a lot of sense to say. So these are all ball wound cakes. This is not the exact order. Actually, I think I remember what it is. I think it's this. Ta-da! So this is going to be the first group, and I just feel like this is going to flow better for me. I have an ambitious plan, which we'll see how it goes. This is really technically the first week that I am working on it, to do 10 colors per week. So I'm almost done with my first color, and that was just from working on it a little bit yesterday. So I feel optimistically confident that I can do it, but I like to set these big goals for myself, and then a lot of the time what happens is it will become like I will see that it's not realistic, and then I can readjust and make a new plan, which is totally fine. But winding these up by hand is not happening this time. Instead, I'm taking my winder out, I guess, twice a week and winding up 5 at a time. I could also wind up more. I just didn't want to wind all of them because for me, because I took pictures of everything in order, it's easier for me to then match the order while they're still in little skeins and then just wind 5 at a time. I don't know. It makes sense in my head more than maybe it's making sense out loud. So the advent calendar came with these cards in the packages. There are no holes in them. I thought about punching holes in them and attaching them to my yarn, but then I decided I'll just take pictures instead. So if you go through my project page, every group of 5, I've taken a picture with the Pokemon card, like the name of it, actually next to the yarn, so you can really easily see exactly what all the colors are. I totally wish I had done this on my Disney advent calendar because it took me almost no time to do, like literally 2 to 3 minutes. And now I have a really great record of all the colors. So when I'm done, I can get rid of these, but I can still go back and look at and remember what all the colors were called. I do think I will, again, for the other blanket, the Quadrophenia that I'll show later, I have all the cards still, so I might still take pictures of the cards on the knitting. So that may be coming soon. I'm trying just really, really hard to document everything for myself and to help others, because I just think it's fun. So the first color here that I have worked, like I said, I'm almost done with this one. I don't want to say too much about like how exactly the pattern is worked because it's a paid pattern, but there are a set number of rows for each color. Oh, I think I just got like some kind of like fluff or something in my eye. So I am just working the set number of rows that the pattern calls for in each color and then going straight to the next color instead of doing a transition row. So I'm going to lose height because I'm not doing those transition rows that the main color would have been in. Sorry. But I have, let's see, I have 31 colors and there were 24 plus a main skein originally. So I have 7 more colors. So I think my blanket is actually going to end up being a little bit longer than the original one. Actually, I'm pretty positive it's going to end up being a little bit longer. And I think that will be totally fine. Right now it's measuring about 35 inches wide. I need to see how that compares to the original pattern, but I think it will be perfect for toaster. The pattern is called Crochet Advent Baby Blanket, but it even says in there that it's great for pets, which I love. So where was I? This color is called the normal type, and all of the rest of the yarns, and I've numbered them on the back too, are normal type Pokemon. These first few, and I'll show these better when I actually crochet them, so these are coming back next week and the photos are in the project page. This first set I think is the most different from itself kind of set, like where the colors are not really as cohesive. But in the next ones coming up, you can pretty reasonably tell like, oh, these are all like blue and gold. These are all blue. These are all green. These are all pink. And that's really, really nice. And I think it's gonna make kind of a fun rainbow of a blanket. So I'm super, super excited for it. So Kent and I were working on getting everything laid out, trying to check the order, make sure everything's good. I think I kind of knew like I didn't want to split up the Pokemon types from each other, and he agreed. I did have to make one other change though. So I worked a swatch. The swatch is included in the pattern, like how to do it and everything, which I, again, can't tell you how nice that is to see in a pattern. I mean, it's pretty normal for like knitting patterns for sweaters and things like that and for crochet, but I don't know, I feel like I just liked that the designer told me exactly how to swatch and like how to measure. I just love that. I'm trying to start including that more in my own patterns too, just because I think it's such a nice touch and makes the, like, my desire to work on that project even greater. So I swatched, and I started out with the same hook size that I used for my other crochet blankets, because I'm also using a fingering weight yarn, and I don't know if you're able to see it, but it is a D hook, but my D hook is a 3.25 millimeter. I think I've seen some D hooks that are 3.5. My 3.5 is just its own thing, I think. Actually, let me see something. I've got this right here because I'm going to show something with this later, but no, my 3.5 is an E, so ignore me. A 3.25 or a D hook is what I've used for my other blankets, which is why I started with this one, because I thought it would make a nice gauge. But when I measured, I was getting a gauge that was too large. So I had too few stitches. My swatch was more than 4 inches. And so then I went down to a C hook and I made some observations. The reason I'm not showing you my swatch is because I did do it in this original yarn and then I needed the yarn, so I pulled it back out. But I do have a picture of it if we haven't already shown it. So then I went down to a C hook, and I noticed a few things with that. One, I noticed that I got gauge, which is great, or at least I got stitch gauge. But what I felt when I was working with the C hook is that it just felt tight. Like it felt too small. It wasn't as comfortable, I guess, because I'm so used to using the D hook with the fingering weight yarn. It just felt very nice, and I don't know, I can't think of another word other than comfortable. I also noticed that my fabric just felt kind of stiff. I know that with blocking, it will probably not feel quite as stiff, but I am very opposed to stiff crochet. I love crochet when it's drapey and loose. And so I just felt like, you know, I need to think on this for a second. So I left my swatch alone, worked on another project for the night, and then the next day is when I made my decision. And I showed Kent, and I was like, can you tell like that the first few rows feel different than the last 2 rows, and they're a little stiffer? And he said he could. Maybe he could or couldn't, I don't know. But I ultimately decided I had 2 options. I could go with the original pattern and the original, or the gauge that I actually got, and the hook size that wasn't as comfortable for me, or I could go with the hook size that was comfortable for me, the fabric that I liked better, and make an adjustment on the pattern. So that's what I decided to do. I decided I would knock some stitches off the cast on. I would use my D hook, even though it was giving me a bigger gauge and a looser fabric, and I would choose enjoyment of the blanket over getting it just right, how the designer wrote it, which is totally fine. You could do this with so many things. Like, it doesn't have to, like, you can use a stitch pattern, which is what I'm doing basically in this case, is using the stitch pattern, the notes and the general design of this designer, but I'm adjusting it for me. And that's okay, you can definitely do that. So what I did, and again, I'm being careful here because I don't want to give away everything about the pattern, it's a paid for pattern and an excellent pattern, is I did some math. I basically compared the cast on, or the chain number that the designer had versus the stitch gauge. Like literally this is a fraction, equal to my stitch gauge equals like X. I think I might have done that wrong. Stitch count, original gauge, X for how many I needed to cast on, and my gauge, and then I cross multiplied and divided. I use cross multiply and divide all of the time for knitting and crochet, and I got a number, and then that number I went, okay, what is the closest cast on I can get that works within the repeats of the pattern? And so when I looked at the repeats of the pattern, I looked at like the row that's repeated over and over again for the chevrons, I realized I could take away 2 repeats essentially of the pattern, and that was going to get me really close to the stitch count. And the reason why it was so important that I didn't just continue on with how the blanket was designed is that I would run out of yarn. I wouldn't have enough yarn to work all the rows that I wanted to work if I did the original stitch count. My blanket would be very big. I wouldn't know if it was going to be tall enough, so it was just better for me to do it that way. Plus, now I have, I think it was like almost 40 stitches. I have it in my notes somewhere on how many stitches I took away. Now I have almost 40 fewer stitches in every single row, which means this blanket is going to go even faster for me. And it is a looser fabric, but I don't think it's too loose. This may not be everyone's preference, but for me, it feels nice, and I'm enjoying working on it, and Toaster will love it no matter what, which is, you know, the most important thing is that I enjoy it, I guess, right? And then Toaster doesn't care. So I think it's going to be really, really great. All right, is that everything I wanted to share with you? I think that's everything. I'm so excited to work on this blanket. I want to work on it so badly right now, but I'm also determined to chip away at Quadrophenia. So you know what? Why don't we go into that one next? Remember how I said that this blanket is like a sack now? It was even better when I had all 4 needles going on here. Okay, so let me explain what's happening with this blanket. So I'm gonna hold it up here in a second and you'll be able to see it. Actually, first, where did my yarn just go? I put it in the center. I don't want to roll on top of it or anything. Okay, it's safe now. So this blanket is called Quadrophenia by K.F. Jones. I have been working on it now for about 6 or 7 weeks, I think, and I am so proud of myself that it is almost done. I wanted to get it done this weekend so badly, but it didn't happen, and that's okay. I have realized that even though it didn't seem like I had a lot left to do, the blocking and the seaming and the finishing that I am doing, was a lot more than I anticipated. And rather than stress myself out and make myself just like grind and get it done and stay up late and like not enjoy finishing the blanket, I would rather spread it out over this week a little bit more, chip away at it a little here and there, and not end the project in a bad mood about the project because, hey, I've already done that with something this month, so I don't need to do that again. And I feel like I made a mature decision, like a mature, irresponsible decision. So let me explain what I mean. I used to not let myself start a new project until I finished one. Like, I'm working on a blanket, I can't start the next blanket until I finish the previous one, or like I can't start the next sweater until I finish the previous sweater. But I decided that I was gonna let there be some overlap, let myself get excited and start my new blanket, all while finishing this one, instead of like, again, like cramming everything into the end and then like starting something new. Like, it just doesn't feel good. Like, I don't know. It's not really making sense with my words, but to me, it makes sense that it can sometimes feel irresponsible to start a new thing before you finish the previous one, but it can actually be a good decision for the enjoyment of the knitting. And I know I'm gonna finish this. I think the reason I couldn't like allow myself to do that in the past is that I knew as soon as I started something else, I would just lose interest in the old thing. So now that I know I'm not gonna do that and I am committed to finishing this, I feel better about it. So I started that new crochet blanket. I'm so excited about it, but I'm also equally excited to keep working on this blanket and finish it. So I have done some things on this. The first thing I did was I finished up my last quadrant, and I want to share with you those last 2 colors. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was this one. Oh, actually, this is perfect because this is the only one I've done the bind off on, so that's great. So I believe this quadrant here, so all of these are triangles that were knit separately and then I have seamed together, and I'm going to talk more about that too. So this quadrant here, I finished this one the last. It was my D quadrant, and I finished these two colors. What does that say? This one, this pink one here, is Fantasyland. And then the very last one is Tomorrowland. And I have added a ton of notes to this blanket now on Ravelry, kind of telling the story of how Kent and I put the colors together. So this entire thing is Fangirl Fibers, same as the Pokemon, but actually different yarn base. And also this was a Christmas Advent from 2021. So it's all colors from the Disney World parks that are based on the Disney World parks. And in the center is everything from Main Street, and then it kind of moves out into different lands from there. And I don't know if I can hold it up like really great yet. I almost don't want to hold it up completely. I'm still going to anyway. It's not done, which is why it'd be kind of fun to do like a big reveal next week. Scooch out of the hair chair. But look at it. It is so ugly when I take pictures of it. I don't know why, but it's actually really pretty and it looks so much better on video and in person, I promise. When I take pictures of it, I'm like, wow, it looks bad, but it's actually really pretty. Right now, because it's on all of these different needles, it kind of feels like one of those like parachute things that kids do, you know, when you hold the handles and you're like, whee, and you all run under it and like get a concussion. Good times. Okay, so let's talk about assembly. I've tried really hard to add so many notes and pictures and things in my Ravelry project page so that I have a record of what I did, because what will happen sometimes is I'll get a question on a project that I completed 6 months to a year ago, and I forget so easily what I've done. And so having those notes is just helpful for me. I've said that too many times this podcast. You get the point now. So here is what I did. I finished knitting all of the quadrants, and instead of binding them off, I wanted to do a more finished edging. I wanted to do a border. So I left all of my stitches live, and I used each color 6 up to the very end. And I mean the very end. I had like this much left of each one. And I have also notes on how many rows I did for each section too, just as a point of reference. Then I had all of the different quadrants on interchangeable needles, which is why I was able to work so many at a time. So I basically just put them all on their interchangeable needles like so, and I started seaming. Now, the pattern includes a seaming video tutorial. I followed it exactly. The tutorial was great. Everything, even about how she says not to weave in your ends until the end. That's something that normally I don't do. I knit over my ends, but I followed those instructions and I think it was really smart. I do now have a ton of ends, but I think I'm going to do something like, I think I'm just going to sew them into the selvage. So that actually probably did work out in my favor as well. Oh, you know what? I'm forgetting something. Sorry. After I finished all of the quadrants, and I think we have for you a picture here of all of them laid out. So you can actually see really well, instead of how, you know, me holding it up with all the needles still on it, how it's going to look once I sewed it together. Before I sewed it together, I actually blocked all of the pieces. In order to do that, I took the needles and the end caps off, because both of these are wood, and in the like hole that you use to screw on the interchangeable needles, I put a light bulb stitch marker. You can see that here. So I put the light bulb stitch marker in. That way I wasn't going to soak and ruin any wooden caps. Now, should you put your cords and submerge them into water? Probably not. Did I do it and did it work fine? Yeah, it worked fine. So basically I put everything was separate. I wanted to block these because I thought it would be easier to sew them together. I thought they would grow, and I was right, they did grow. And I didn't want to sew something together when it was in the shrunk up state and then it grow and the seam be too tight and I wanted it to grow as much as possible. So I figured blocking first, then sewing a blocked piece was going to give me the biggest blanket that I could ask for. So after I put them all in the tub and soaked them, I put them all in together for 20 minutes, I pulled them out and I made sure to really dry off the metal end. So I dried off the, I squished the blanket in a towel first, but then I also went back with a dry towel and dried off the metal caps on the cords. I dried off the stitch markers, and I tried to keep the fabric away. So you can see what they look like laid out on the mats. I had 2 laid out on my puzzle piece mats, and then I had 2 laid out on another blocking board that I have. And they dried super fast, like in less than 24 hours, they were dry. And then I sewed them together using the tutorial in the pattern. But because my stitches were still live and because I still had them on the needles, I could only seam them up until like the last ½ inch or so. I kind of left that. And then this is what I did. I went around with a whole round of knitting. So I really wanted to have the piece assembled before I started the border process because I wanted the corners of the border to be smooth. I wanted to have, I already have a ton of ends. I didn't want to have a bunch of ends by working each individual piece like border on its own and then sewing the border together. I just wanted the border to be a continuous I-cord. So I tested before I blocked anything. I took one piece and I tested a couple of different ways to do an I-cord. Got a picture of that as well. I'm trying really hard to take pictures. But I tested a couple of different ways to do an I-cord. The way I ultimately decided to do it is that one round in my border color, which by the way, this is Moon Glow, Cottonwood Breeze. It's so great. I use it to put together, actually, right here. I used it to put together this blanket and it turned out so nice. So I decided it would be a good border color for this one as well. So again, one round of knitting. And that way, when I did the I-cord, I was doing the I-cord on top of a knit row, not a ridge, like a purl bump. Because I also tested it out where I did back and forth, and 2 knit rows. So I had one garter ridge of the border color and then the I-cord, and that did not look good. I didn't like just one garter bump of this color underneath the I-cord. It looks a lot better right now, at least I think. So when I worked that last row around, I still did increases just like the pattern has called for in the corners. So I basically did, except I did a closed increase. So I did knit 1, make 1 right, knit to the last stitch of the quadrant, make 1 left, knit 1. I've got it all in my notes. But on the bind off round, I am just binding off with the I-cord. I also kept, basically all of the quadrants are on my interchangeable needles like this because I only needed a needle to feed the stitches off. I am binding off for the I-cord like this. Ooh, you know what? Let me go back because that's probably not making a lot of sense for the other round that I did. When I did the round where I just did knitting, I was constantly moving my needle stoppers and my needle tips, and I had a 5th needle like this that I would knit 1 whole quadrant on, leave it, then I would have a loose needle, the 5th one, work the next whole quadrant, leave it, so that they're all on their own. Does that make sense? I'm trying to explain this as best as I can. So see, this whole quadrant is on its own needle. This whole quadrant on its own needle. So they're all still separate. I didn't get one big needle all the way around. I just did a traveling needle situation. Anyway, so here's what it looks like with just the 1 row of the border color. See how it's 2 knit rows on top of each other? If I went back and did the other one, if I went back and knit again on the wrong side, there would be a garter bump in this color, and I didn't like that. So then I have been working the I-cord. So this is a really light color, so it doesn't stand out as well, but it's just a nice finished edge. And you can't even see that 1 row of the border color that I did, but it needed to be there because I guess I've done something in the past where I just inserted a contrast I-cord right on top of the other color that I was working on, and it didn't look right. It really looks much better if you have one row on the right side in your contrast color, then your bind off. And the way I'm doing this bind off is I realized that if I use the same size needle, which is a 4, it looked a little loose and sloppy. So I'm actually using a size 3 needle. And I really like using a double pointed needle, or just like a separate, like you could do a separate attached needle like this for an I-cord bind off. It makes things so much easier if you don't have the weight of your knitting on you for the I-cord. So anyway, I'm saying a lot of words for these blankets. Can you tell that I'm just having so much fun? They're so great. So I think it's looking really good. I've only got one whole deal here, one side. Everything else is still on the needles, but I think this blanket is gonna be a decent size. I mean, it's gonna be enough to just like lay on my lap for sure. I'm pretty pleased with the size of the blanket because it felt small before I put it together and before I blocked it. So over this next week, I'm just gonna take my time with the I-cord. I don't think I'm going to need to block this again. I think it's good. I don't think I need to wash it again. When I did wash it the first time, I put some color catchers in there, which are they kind of look like dryer sheets, but they're from Shout. They're called color catchers, and they're meant to soak up any dye that comes off of your clothing or yarn in that case. And they didn't catch any dye. So I feel really good about the yarns being washed together. I need to figure out my weaving an in situation. I also need to watch the video from the pattern that talks about how to close the hole in the center. I also have 8 ends because I have 4 from starting each of the pieces and 4 from actually used this yarn to to seam everything. Oh yeah, you probably want to see the wrong side, right? So when you seam it, you use a mattress stitch. So you have a small selvage, but I think it looks really good. Like, I don't think that it looks bad. I was able to like match the color changes. I think it looks really good. So hopefully, for sure, right, next week, this thing will be finished. I'm trying to bait Toaster over here, so we'll see if he comes over here. Okay, I just want to touch on this project one last time, and then we are putting it to rest, literally in my drawer. I don't want to talk about it for a while. So this is the Citrine Light by Emily Green. Whoa, that almost went out of my head for a second. I don't know why. I have well, it doesn't feel completely finished for 2 reasons. 1, I can't decide about the sleeves. 2, I didn't reblock it, although now I don't know if it really needs it. And 3, I haven't taken finished object photos of it yet. So it feels a little bit unfinished, and I feel like I need to go back and revamp my project page. But I was just too excited about my blankets this weekend to really spend too much time doing anything with this. But what I did do is I went and I wove in all of the ends on the body. So those are all done. The only ends I have left are these 2 ends on the sleeves. I still can't decide, and I don't think I'll be able to decide until I actually go out in the world wearing this, if the sleeves are too long on me. So I'm actually gonna leave them for now. And the next time that I wear it, I'm just going to tuck those inside. And if it bothers me, if they're feeling too long, I will then take a few rows out and rebind them off. If it doesn't, I will weave in these ends, and that will be totally fine. I am going to let myself feel like this project is finished, even though there's a little part of me that's saying, it's not really finished yet. I've already put a finish date on Ravelry. I've marked it as finished. I can still get some photos without weaving in those ends, and that's fine. But yeah, there's just like, the vibes on this pattern are not great. I was looking back at some of the project notes I did, and I think it took me a month from when I originally knit the ribbing to actually tearing everything out and finishing it on the hem of the sweater, which is kind of wild. But it just goes to show, when you're not feeling something, when it doesn't feel right, like, you gotta fix it or it will just never be right. I don't know. So I am going to literally fold this right now, and we're gonna put it away in my finished objects drawer together. We are not gonna worry about it. And by the way, I wanted to say thank you to everyone because you left such nice comments on last week's podcast. I didn't see a single person, and maybe I just missed it, that said they didn't think the Citrine Light looked good. Some people said the sleeves were too long. Some people said the sleeves were fine to leave them. But a lot of you were saying, I'm just too close to this. I've worked so much on it. I need to just set it aside and like it will feel better, I think, when I come back to it when the weather gets colder again. So everyone say goodbye. Give a salute. This thing is going away and it is officially done. I have one last project here in my adorable So Crazy Crafter bag. I love this thing so much. So I am working on some cozies for the Cozy Along 2023. You should definitely join us to knit or crochet cozies in the month of May. We are only 1 weekend, so, well, a little more than 1 week, but we've got the whole month to work on cozies. So first up, I have a finished cozy to show you. So I knit the 50-gram mini yarn cozy, the new updated version. Make sure you update your pattern if you haven't, because I've added 1/2 inch to the cozy to make it fit better. I also added in notes on how to do a contrast I-cord. Something that's very exciting, I need to pull this up actually, is that I figured out what these yarns are and what I made from them, which is really exciting. And I linked them in the project page, so if you want to see photos of the projects that I'm about to talk about, you can go through and look at that. So through some background research on my own projects, I figured out that this yarn is from Long Dog Yarn, and it is called First Blush, and it is not currently available, but I believe that they still dye it. And it's got these really nice like neon speckles in it that, here we go, they're not really showing up on camera super well, but can you see them? They're almost an exact match for this yarn, which is a totally different dyer. This yarn is so glowy, I love it. It is Leaning Min Fiber Art, Electric Avenue. So this yarn I used originally in one of my shawl patterns called Louisiana Street. It was a little while ago. And then this yarn I used for a Stephen West mystery knit along shawl in, I think, like 2018, called Texture Time. So if you want to see those original projects, oh, did I link them? No, I did link them in this project page so that you can like click into them and see the yarn where I used it originally. So I didn't weigh this yarn because I know I'm gonna have plenty. My plan is to do maybe do the contrast edging on the 20-gram mini that I'm planning to make, but I'm actually making two 50-gram minis, and this one is not going to have the contrast I-cord because I want them to be slightly different, a matched pair. But when I'm working on socks that I've split into 50-gram cakes, I want to be able to tell the two apart. I've also seen people do this with the 100-gram sizes. If you're alternating skeins, it's really nice to have something that is distinguishing the two different yarns. So I'm not worried about how much yarn I have here, but for this one, I do know that I had 27 grams when I started, and this one should have used no more than 9 grams. So 9, 9, and then I should have enough to do a 20-gram knit size, and I'll have a full sock set. So the 250 grams, and then the little mini, smaller one, the 20-gram one for any mini skeins. So these are really, really fun. I worked on most of this. I did the bottom and all the increasing. I don't know, one day I just like got it started because I wanted to have it ready. And then I did the entire body during the movies when I went to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And then of course I did not do the I-cord when I was in the movies, but I did it when I came home. And so the way you do the I-cord, and again, this is in the updated version of the pattern, is you need, I don't know if you can even see it. You really can't even see it, but you need that last round before the I-cord to be in the same color. So you work the decreased round with that color, and then you work the I-cord. Just like on my blanket, I worked one round in the border color and then the I-cord. So fun way to jazz up your cozies. So these are just kind of cruising along for me this month. I'm wanting to get the whole set of them done before the end of the month, but I think if I can kind of keep up a once a week kind of a pace, it's gonna be they're just gonna basically knit themselves and they'll be done in the month of May. Before we move on to the question segment, I wanted to share with you a couple of things that arrived in the mail this week that I purchased. Uh-oh, I'm dropping them on the floor. So the first thing is that I bought a bunch of stitch markers from Simply Serving. Lindsay is one of my favorites. She makes these adorable polymer clay stitch markers and I just love them so much. Oh, and I'm noticing that these are all on the lever backs, which is my favorite, so I don't have to change them over. The lever back is this fastener and it just opens up really nicely, so you can actually get a few stitches if you want onto that fastener. So anyway, I got a Cheez-It. It's like, it literally looks like a Cheez-It. Like it looks like you could eat it. So cute. I'm just taking everything out of their baggies now, sorry. Should have done this beforehand, but I just wanted to get started filming. I got a bowl of popcorn. Isn't it so cute? So funny because I feel like everything I get is always food. Pretty much always food. I have a whole bowl of Progress Keepers here, and I have them organized on these really big, what are they called, safety pins, and this whole one is food. That's all it is. So all of these are gonna go on there. I got a Teddy Graham. I love Teddy Grahams. They're so good. And these are lightweight, by the way. They're big. They're not gonna be great for like the tiniest projects, but they're very lightweight, so they don't bother. And then I can't remember what these things are called. Kent wanted me to get this one. I think it's called like a Hostess cupcake. I'm probably gonna get some hate for this, but I don't like these. Or at least I don't think I do. What are those called? Hostess cupcakes? Yeah, so I don't know. I got that one because Kent wanted that one. He was over my shoulder while I was ordering. And then this one is gonna be something I'm gonna use a lot come October. This is Zero from The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I'm pretty sure this glows in the dark. I cannot remember because I ordered these a few weeks ago, but I think that it does, and I'm so excited about it. So that's what I got from Simply Serving. And then from 5 to 6 Handmade, I have snagged 2 more things to go with my set. So I did a whole video about this bag. This is a bag I had custom made for me. It has, well, first of all, I have one of the, I think this is called the circular needle case, full in there. But I have a whole side for my interchangeable needles, double pointed needles, and then the other side is all my crochet hooks, and they're all labeled, and it is the best bag. So this is how big it is compared to my head. And so I already did a whole video on this. I'll make sure to link this. I've got tons of like basically just like tools and notions in here because I don't have a lot of circular needles because my interchangeable needles cover all that. But what I was missing is somewhere to store all of these stitch markers that I have. And my ultimate goal is to get everything inside of this pouch. So I had hoped to do it before I filmed the podcast. I haven't yet, but that's okay. But I want to show you what I got to go in here. So I got 2 more pieces that match this fabric. So the first thing I got is, this one is called the interchangeable cords case. It's smaller. You know what? Let me show you a comparison because I think that would be helpful. So this is the interchangeable needle case. Doesn't mean you have to use it for interchangeable needles. And this one is the cord case. So it's smaller. But what I got this one for is to organize all of my flat stitch markers. So I have like all these colorful light bulb markers that I use sometimes. I have all of these like circular steel ones. I've got all of these split ring markers. I've got all of like the metallic light bulb ones, which to me are different than the colorful ones because the colorful ones are painted. They're not as easy to use, but I like them every once in a while to have a color. So all of those are gonna go in here so I can keep them all separated by type. I guess I could even go, you know, further into sizes because I've got plenty of envelopes in there. So that is going to be fantastic. And then I knew I needed something bigger for all of these. Because they're 3D, they're not really going to fit in the pouches. I got this, which I don't know what she calls this. I think it's like the Notions pouch or something, but it's perfect because it's got a really big box bottom, like for the proportions on this, how short it is, it's a really big box bottom. So I'm gonna be able to open it up and see everything inside. So I'll just be able to take all of these things and dump them in there and I'll be able to see everything. And then hopefully, the hope is that all of this will fit inside this pouch and I'll just merrily be able to bring all of my things. Let's see, I know they're not full yet. So I can put this upside down, that's fine. Hopefully, once these are full, everything just fits in here like this. This has been like a dream for me, which is very silly, but I love to consolidate and have functionality. And I think that just having a one-stop like shop for myself like has been so nice already, even without the stitch markers. I've just had this bag next to me on the couch. Oh, there's a bell in there, isn't there? It's kind of annoying. I've just had this next to me on the couch and I have everything that I need. It's made me put away my things more because it's so easy to know where everything goes. So I have loved this. I can't say enough good things about these bags. They're amazing. So yeah, look for, maybe I'll do like a reel or a YouTube short or something where I put together everything into my bag and it's all complete. Okay, this is more to Kent than to anyone else really, but I've just turned my fan on and put on shorts because it is getting super hot in here. This fan is the best. I'm gonna set it right here. It'll keep me cool. Hopefully you can't hear it too much, but if it does make a lot of noise, then I'll figure something out for the next podcast. Fingers crossed that it's okay. All right, let's get into some questions. Our first question is from Barbara. Can you make a video on how to sew the 4 triangles of your beautiful Quadrophenia blanket? Do you think there's a way to knit all together without sewing and get the same result? Ciao from Italy. Hi, Barbara. Oh my gosh, it's always so cool to hear that people are watching from all around the world. I am so grateful for you. Okay, so I am not planning to make a video on sewing together the Quadrophenia. I'm not planning to make a tutorial because it's not my pattern, and in the pattern, she already has a tutorial video that is way better than anything that I can do. I also did not make a vlog video about this blanket, but like I said, I have tons of pictures of how to put everything together or how I put everything together, how I did the border and all of that. And I've got photos, I've got descriptions, so just like read through everything in the project page if what I talked about previously doesn't make sense. But I love this question about could you potentially make it without sewing things together. Oh wait, hold on. One more thing about the sewing before I forget. I have a tip for you. I felt like sewing that together was pretty laborious, like leaning over, like doing it on a flat surface. So I got a pillow and I put it on my lap and it lifted the blanket up and I had a white pillow so I could really see everything against the pillow, and it made everything so much easier to sew it together. So that's my seaming tip for you for anything really. Okay, so could you knit it all together? I was thinking about that, especially as I was seaming things together, and you definitely could figure out a way where you cast on in the center and then like increase out. But here's the thing. If you were to do that, you would have to have 4 balls of yarn attached to your blanket. Does that sound fun? It sounds pretty miserable to me, honestly. I don't think I would want to do it. So you'd have to have those 4 balls attached the entire time. And then you'd be dealing with something that is this big, which is a lot on your lap and everything. So thinking about the pros and cons of knitting it separately and then taking the couple of hours, it took me about a half hour for each seam, so 2 hours in total. Comparing that to the, like 2 hours is not a lot of time in the grand scheme of making the blanket. So for me, I think it was smart to knit it in pieces because it was so much more portable. It was so much more fun to knit because I didn't have to manage. I only had one skein of yarn at a time, which was so nice. And it also just was easy. It was very easy. It wasn't tricky to do. And so I think it was the right choice to make the pieces separately and then seam them together. It doesn't mean that that might not be the right choice for you, especially if you don't plan to take your blanket around the house with you or you really hate seaming or something. But I just don't know if the benefits of doing a one-piece thing really outweigh the benefits of having it in pieces. So I actually didn't mind the seaming. I took my time with it. I did do it all in one day, but I would do like one seam and then I would do something else and then I would do another seam and then I would do something else just to kind of spread things out. So I think that I would not, if I were to make it again, I would still make it the exact same way. Next question is from Rachel. Thank you, Natalie, for your great podcasts and tutorials. I love your yarn cozies and purchased the Knit and Crochet bundle and can't wait to start. Question, will you be doing a pattern bundle for sock week also? I'm a beginner knitter and sock maker. Okay, well, I have the answer for you for that. I am not planning to do any bundles for sock week, but what I typically do is I make all of my sock patterns on sale. So I will have a coupon that will work for all of my sock patterns that you can use. So my sock patterns are, I wouldn't say they're not beginner friendly, but they're all patterned. They're all, I don't have a beginning sock pattern right now. They're all something else. They have patterns within them. I think you can still do them as a beginner because I have pretty decent instructions, and I also have a completely free set of tutorials on my YouTube channel that goes through how to knit a sock from the cuff down, how to knit a sock from the toe up. So with those two resources, the pattern and the videos together, you can definitely make your first sock. But what I will also have is probably some kind of promotion either before or after sock week. I haven't really thought exactly how I'm gonna do it yet on my sock course. So the sock course is called Perfect Fit Socks, and it is for beginners and for people who are really advanced that are just frustrated with making socks that don't fit. So in that course, I go into great detail about how to make socks, from the way to cast on to how many rows to do for the ribbing, how many stitches to do here, how many stitches to do here. I show you the fish lips kiss heel. I have so many things in that course. You can get it right now if you want. I'll make sure it's linked. Actually, I think it's probably always in the description box below. But yeah, I'll probably do something with that. Although I can't say exactly what because I haven't planned it out. It might be before, it might be after, it might be during. I don't know yet, but there will definitely be resources for you. Also, a little bit of a spoiler, there's going to be a couple of special patterns from other makers that are coming out during sock week, or a little bit before sock week, that are themed. So be looking out for those. They're gonna be really, really cute. The next question is a little bit of a two-parter because they're both about hats. The first one is from Ida. Can I make a Musselburgh hat with any yarn? I see you only use sock yarn. You're amazing. I love your channel. Thank you so much. Okay, so this one's quick. Yes, you can definitely make a Musselburgh hat with another type of yarn. The coolest thing about this pattern, the Musselburgh hat, I don't even have one to show you because I just finished mine last week. But the greatest thing about that pattern is that it is written for multiple sizes. You know what? I should just pull it up. It's not my pattern. It is by Isolde Teague. Let's see. Ravelry. Musselburgh. Kid told me that I haven't been saying it right, that it's like Musselburgh, but like really, do you say Edinburgh if you're American? You say Edinburgh. Okay, now I'm just gonna get myself confused. I know I'm not saying it probably the proper way, but I'm saying it the best way that I know how. And I know it's not Musselburgh because how did I figure that out? I feel like I heard Isolde say it. She's the designer of the pattern. Okay, wait, let's get back on track here. The Musselburgh pattern is, does it say on here? You can use heavy lace weight, so even smaller than fingering weight, up to DK weight yarn. You can also knit it in multiple sizes. Does it say on here? I want to say it's like kid size to adult, like a large adult. 6 sizes it says. Light fingering weight to DK and 6 sizes, but it also gives you 9 gauges. So where does it say this? A gauge of 9 stitches per inch, all the way up to 5 stitches per inch. So honestly, that could be worsted weight. So it's a really amazing pattern. It's so many patterns in one, plus all the different ways you can combine colors or add in ribbing to it. That part's not included in the pattern, but if you just scroll through people's projects, it's such a great pattern. I love it so much. So that's the first part. And then the second question that I kind of thought was related to this is from Karen. Is there a video on knitting a top-down hat? I learned how to do a bottom-up hat, but I don't know how to do a top-down knit hat. I don't know how to start off with increases. So the Musselburgh hat is a hat that is started at the top with increases. And the interesting thing about this one is you don't stop at like the brim part of the hat. You keep going and basically make another hat, and then you decrease on the other side. But you could do just a single layer hat starting at the crown. It's not very common in knit hats. Most knit hats start at the brim and go up, and you do decreasing for the crown of the head. I don't know why this is. I think it's just easier to start out with all your stitches, but you definitely could do the other way. So I can't say specifically that there's a video about how to start a hat, but there are lots of videos about how to do the cast on that you need to do in order to start from the top. And then you could use a pattern like Isolde's Musselburgh hat or something else to teach you the stitches that you need to know. So the cast on that I like to use is called the Pinhole Crochet Cast On. I have it linked in all of the Musselburgh project pages that I have on my Ravelry project pages, because I just think it's the easiest one. The very first Musselburgh hat, I did something different, and it was so hard, and I didn't really want to make any more hats. And I know that's something that like trips a lot of people up when they first start the pattern, is that cast on. So I am planning to make a video where I talk about all of my different Musselburgh hats. We're going to pull them all out. We're going to compare them. I'm going to talk about how I made each one. I'm going to talk about what I like best about each one, which ones are my favorite that I wear the most. And I'm also planning to show my own version of the crochet pinhole cast on, because at least in the video tutorials that I've seen, I haven't seen them transfer the stitches onto the knitting needles the same way that I like to do it. And I want to put my own my own spin on things out there and hopefully help people get started on their Musselburgh hat. So that video is coming later in May is when I'm planning to do it. I think May. Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I am planning to have my own tutorial on that. So if you want to start now, there's lots of resources out there, or you can wait a few weeks. I will have something coming that at least gives you the cast on, and then you'll need a pattern in order to show you how to do the rest of the hat. So hopefully that will be a big help for this. Next question is from Sheila. Have you, or anyone out there, and of course you're always welcome to answer these questions too, ever tried one of your yarn cozies on a hand wound center pull ball? So, where do I have? Enjoy the siren noises while I look for my cozy. Oh, here it is. All right, is it gone? Okay, so what am I showing you? The cozy, I got all distracted. So the yarn cozies, both knit and crochet versions, are intended for cakes that are done on a ball winder. That doesn't mean you can't use them for your hand wound cakes, but for me, when I hand wind a cake, it ends up a lot shorter and bigger around than when I wind them on a ball winder. So I've seen people put their hand wound cakes in the cozies. They just don't fit quite as well. Usually you see like a lot of cozy on the top and the ball kind of, or the cake kind of resting down here. They still fit, but it looks a little bit funny. So my suggestion for you would be to start one of the cozies just like normal, and then get one of your personal cakes, the way you wind cakes, and compare it as you're knitting. You could always shorten the length of the cozy, and then just, you know, instead of doing however many inches are here, 2.5 inches or something, you could do 2 inches, you could do 1.25 inches, and then work the decrease round and the bind off the same, and you would get a custom fit cozy for the way that you make your own yarn cakes. So you are totally welcome to do that. Very easy adjustment. Kind of, I think of it in the same way as like shortening a sweater to fit my body. You just make a change in the straight part. That way you can follow the pattern to a T everywhere else. And I believe that would actually work out just fine. Okay, I hear more ambulances. Everyone okay out there? We have one more question to go through. This question is from Emma. Hi Natalie, I have a question about yarn for socks. When choosing yarn for socks, do you have to go for a yarn with a percentage of nylon in it? Or can you go for 100% wool? If you do go for a 100% wool, how does it change the sock? i.e. less stretch, wears faster, etc. Thank you, and I love the podcast. Okay. These sirens, man. Hopefully they're not as loud as they sound here, but you never know. I always like to say that they're sirens too, in case you're like listening and you're worried. It's just on my end. Actually, it's fire trucks. I can see them now. Okay, so let's talk about yarn for socks. My preference is going to be a fingering weight yarn that has nylon in it. There's different percentages. My favorite is 75% superwash merino wool and 25% nylon with a 4-ply base. So there's 4 strands of yarn, they're twisted up nice and tight. The nylon gives it kind of a shine, but it also makes the yarn very slack. It's not bouncy, it's not as squishy. Some people don't like it as much. Some people only use it for socks and will use it for garments, etc. There's also an 80-20 base that's really common. That's a little bit plumper, a little squishier because it's got more wool in it and less nylon. That one's really great too. That one is, sometimes I have to adjust my stitch count or my needle size to get a good fitting sock. My gauge will change a little bit with that. But you asked, do you have to have nylon in your socks? And you don't. You can definitely have a 100% wool sock. I think that the biggest concern, at least that I've heard, because I can't say from experience, because I do not knit socks without nylon in them. The biggest concern I think is the wear and tear, because wool socks, or nylon gives wool some strength. So you may see more pilling, you may see more wear on your socks, but I've also heard people say, I just wear my knitted socks around the house. So I really like wool and I'd rather them be like comfortable and woolly and have nothing synthetic in them and very breathable. And it's fine because I'm just wearing them around my house, so they really don't get worn down that much. So the short answer is yes, you can definitely still make your socks out of 100% wool, but I would say you're gonna have to test it for yourself. So even when I use a nylon based sock yarn, I can felt my socks because I have really sweaty feet. I know you don't really need to know that about me, but it's true. And maybe it will make you feel better if you also felt your nylon socks. So if I had 100% wool socks, I wonder if that would be worse, because to felt socks, you need moisture, heat, and friction. And if you have your feet are sweating in your shoe and you're walking on it, it's going to felt, right? So I feel like for me, that would be not a good choice because I already am felting stuff with nylon in it. So I don't know. Maybe it would be better because they would be more breathable. Maybe I'm wearing the wrong shoes. I have no idea. But anyway, I think you should definitely give it a try, especially if that's the yarn that you have and the yarn that you like to work with, and then test it out. The worst thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna get holes in your socks or you're gonna get felted patches on your socks. So what? You can make more socks after that. It's totally fine. You still got to knit them, you still got to wear them, and it's not gonna happen like in your first wear or anything. This is gonna be after wearing them for a while and really like wearing them for long hours and things like that. So I think you should give it a try, especially if you like the yarn, and don't worry about what other people say is the right thing to do necessarily for sock knitting. All right, if you have any questions for me, leave them down below, but please make sure in the front of them to put #question so that we can easily find them. Honestly, it's like unbelievable that Toaster is not up here. He's not even on the bed. He is on the floor, on the other side, in his own bed. He's such a brat. I guess I can take this away. Here you go, Toaster, do you want this? That's what he gets for not being a part of the podcast. What are we paying him for? All right, we have a few bits of news this week, pretty quick. The newest video was a YouTube live for our Cozy Along kickoff. If you joined us for that, thank you so much. It was so much fun. Oh wait, that's not right. What happened here? I think I forgot to change this. Okay, I just changed it. So last week's video, 2 weeks ago, was the live kickoff for the Cozy Along. You can still watch it if you want to see all the different cozies, but I am so sorry. This week's video was a Bliss Yarns yarn store tour. So Bliss Yarns is my first local yarn store. It is in Brentwood, Tennessee, which is literally just outside of Nashville. It is like Nashville, Brentwood. It's super, super close. So if you're ever visiting Nashville, you have got to go to Bliss Yarns and visit Deb and everyone there and see the beautiful shop. It is my happy place. Every time I go home, I definitely have to go and visit Bliss and hang out for a few hours and knit at the table. Everyone there is very welcoming. The yarn is beautiful. So go check out that yarn store tour. I'm really hoping this year that we can bring you a lot of yarn store tours. I'm really excited for it. We have big plans. And then coming up next week is another big video. It is the Sock Week 2023 sponsor reveal. This one is going to be a live premiere, so I will have recorded the video ahead of time, so it'll be probably a half an hour video, maybe a little less. I'm going to share all about what's coming up for Sock Week and mostly focus on sharing all of the sponsors. We've got yarn, we've got bags, I'm not going to say what else, but we have so many exciting things this year. This is the most sponsors we've ever had, the most different types of products we've ever had. It's going to be really big and really exciting. We also have different countries involved this year, which is going to be great for all of our international people. And they also ship to the US, so don't worry, you're not going to miss out. But I'm really excited to share all of that. We've been working really hard and keeping this secret for so long, so it'll be so fun to finally reveal that. So next week, Tuesday, May 16th, 12 p.m. Eastern time, mark your calendars, come watch live and chat with me, or you can watch it later and see everything. The products are not going to go on sale until the Friday after that, so not the same Friday that the video comes out, but the next Friday. So you'll have some time to watch everything and see what you want to buy and make a plan and everything, so it'll be great. Last thing is just that the Cozy Along is ongoing through the end of May. We are just over a week in. Keep tagging me in your posts, keep sharing on stories. Just a reminder that if you want to enter for prizes, you can use #CozyAlong on Instagram. Make sure that it's an Instagram post that goes on your feed. So a reel or a static post. You can use it in stories too. It will still display to people, but it goes away after 24 hours. So stories don't count towards prize entries. If you finish any cozies, make sure to go and fill out the Google form. It will be down below in this video, but it's also on my Instagram bio, so you can find it easily. Every time you complete a cozy, just put in a form, and that will enter you to win some other prizes as well. So I think that's it. Pretty quick this week. Still lots of fun stuff going on, cozying along, getting ready for Sock Week. It's going to be a fantastic summer. Not a ton of time has passed since I last recorded a podcast, just because we were traveling at the beginning of last week and I ended up recording a podcast kind of late. Now I'm recording a podcast on time and I don't know. So it hasn't really even been a full week, but a lot has still happened, so let me catch you up. The first thing that happened this week that was really exciting for me is that I hit 100 Pilates classes at my local place that I like to go to. It's a Club Pilates, which is a big conglomerate of Pilates studios all across the country. I used to go in Texas, but I hadn't been in years. And when I started going, I think last March here in New York, I just loved it. I loved it, but it was really, really hard. And I found it hard to make it to my 2 classes a week. I was signed up for 8 classes a month and it was just difficult to make it, like to make myself go. But I started getting stronger and it started getting more fun, and I started finding instructors that I really liked, and I started recognizing people in the classes, and it started to become something that was kind of essential for me and my well-being and my mental health. And so it's become a really big part of my life here in New York. So I, not too long ago, actually switched over to another plan where now I get to go 3 to 4 times a week if I want to go to Pilates. I started doing my first like double classes where I would take 2 classes in a row, which is still very, very hard, but something that would have been impossible when I first started. I'm feeling really strong, and I'm just really proud of myself for sticking with something for this long to go to 100 classes. So it took me just over a year to hit 100 classes, but that means that I was going to like 8 to 9 classes per month, and so 2-ish a week over on an average, which I think is pretty good. I'm really proud of that. So I got to sign this wall that they have for people that have hit 100 classes at that studio. So everything I did in Texas didn't count. It was just when I moved here to New York, and I got some like really ridiculous looking socks that say 100 on it. I'm probably never gonna wear, but that's okay. I was still excited to get them. So that felt really, really good, and I feel very proud of myself for hitting that milestone. We went to see the newest Guardians movie, Marvel movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it's called like Volume 3. We really like to go see those as soon as they come out, so early on Thursdays. And so we've had our tickets for probably a month. So we went to that with some friends who like took off of work early, I'm assuming. I don't really know how they were able to be there, but we went to an early movie. I knitted on my yarn cozy during the movie, and then we went and got dinner together. It just turned into a really fun night. The movie was great, emotional, but also just really good. I'm not going to say any more than that. Go and see it if you like the Guardians or Marvel. This weekend, we really didn't have anywhere to go or anything to do, which was amazing. I spent Saturday in my like favorite way possible, which was just hunkering down with my knitting and crochet. That's when I made some big strides on my Quadrophenia blanket. I got a lot of my notes taken care of on my Ravelry project pages. I worked to figure out how I wanted to start my Crochet Advent baby blanket, but it was just a really good day to just kind of hunker down and figure out all of those things. It was really, really nice. I think I wove in my ends on my Citrine Light that day, just checked a lot of things off the list, which felt really good. Some of those things that I want to do with my knitting, whether it's starting a new project, finishing a project, getting things organized in Ravelry, or like getting things organized physically with my stuff, it just can't happen during the week. Like my brain is too preoccupied with Knitty Natty business stuff or other things. And so it was great to have a really chill weekend to do that. We also spent some time organizing this weekend, and we had planned to go through both of our clothes, myself and Kent, but we ended up we kind of set a time limit for ourselves, and we spent the entire time on Kent's stuff, but it felt really good, and we got all of his clothes sorted. We went through, we just needed to like go through things and downsize some stuff. We just had too many things and a lot of stuff that he wasn't wearing. Same for me. I'm gonna do the same for myself, maybe tonight or something. But I was so proud of Kent. He got rid of I think like 5 trash bags full of clothes. Most of them are going to be donated. Some of them are too far gone or too specific. They have names on them. So it was a very small amount that we're not going to be able to donate. But most of it we're going to be getting our little fold-up wagon from our storage unit and taking over to the Salvation Army later this week. And it's going to feel amazing. So I can't wait to do it with my own clothes. On Sunday, we went to see Hadestown for a second time, which is a Broadway musical. It is incredible. It was good the second time. It was amazing the first time. It was still really good the second time. We were just a little disappointed because the person that we wanted to see so badly again, that is such a beautiful singer, the main girl, was not there that day, but the person that was in her place was still incredible, and so it was still really good. And we had different seats, but before we went with the Vogue Knitting Live block of seats, and so we got really great tickets for $100. We were like dead center and like down in the orchestra level. So this time we were up higher, so we had a totally different perspective of how the whole, like, everything came together with all the dancing and stuff. So it was just amazing. Hadestown is so good. So it was a really great weekend. I am still reading Advika and the Hollywood Wives by Kirthana Ramisetti. I'm almost done with it. I think I've read 100 pages since last week. It is not my favorite book by far. I am probably not going to give it a super high rating, but I do want to finish it and see what happens in the end. It's just kind of a tough book. Like, the subject matter isn't really super dark, but it's about a relationship that is not healthy, and so I don't know, it wasn't my favorite. And it's not a feel-good book, so I actually started another book in the meantime. So last week I started a knitting murder mystery series called Murder Wears Mittens. It's our book club book for the Love and Stitches membership this month. I was having a hard time with it too. I'm like, man, how do I have 2 books that I am like having a hard time with? And with that second book, The Murder Wears Mittens, I was having a hard time keeping up with all the characters. It just wasn't like as lighthearted as I wanted it to be. I really, really like another knitting murder mystery series. What was it called? The first one is called Knit One, Kill Two, I think. It's really, really good. It just wasn't like that, so I was having a hard time getting into it. But then I realized that it could be because it's the 12th book of a series of which I have read none of so far. And so after I realized that I had been reading a book 12, I was like, well, no wonder I am having a hard time understanding everything. I'm having a hard time keeping up with the characters, because there have been 11 books where people have been getting to know these characters and understanding why they interact the way they do, and I'm just like getting dropped into the middle of it. So I stopped reading that book and I got the first book, which is called Death by Cashmere by Sally Goldenbaum, and I am now reading that. It's still not, to me, as great as the books that I love, the Knit One Kill Two series, but I'm really hoping I can get into it more and start to enjoy it, because there are so many of them and it would be lovely to have a really lighthearted read in between everything else. So TBD, I'll keep you posted on if I continue to read those. I want to leave you today with something new that I have learned about crochet that I'm sure all you crocheters probably know, but if you're not as into crochet as I am, this may be new to you. So when I was working on my Crochet Advent baby blanket, I realized that the designer of the pattern said, you know, you can start with chain 3 for double crochets, or you can do a standing double crochet. And I was like, what's a standing double crochet? So I went on to YouTube and looked it up. I also had several messages from people telling me something about a standing double crochet, and I'm like, all right, I'm hearing this word a lot. I don't know what it means. Let me figure this out. And that brought me to a tutorial from Moogly. So I'm gonna have that tutorial linked down below. But basically, a standing double crochet is a different way to start your double crochet row. So you can start with a chain 3 and, you know, skip that first stitch and work into the second stitch. And then when you come back, you work into the chain 3. But the problem with that is that it's kind of gappy. The chain 3 doesn't look the same as double crochets. So this is basically a different way to start your row that looks more like a double crochet, even though it's not. So let me show you what it looks like on mine. I'm probably not doing this perfectly. It took a little bit of practicing and finagling, but it's right here. This is my standing double crochet. So it's really not easy to see, but instead of just being like a really flimsy looking chain 3, it is a much more just double crochet looking type of thing. I am trying to find the balance, there's one on the other side, between it being loose enough to be like tall enough for the double crochet and not pull my edges down, but like not too loose that it looks kind of wild. So I've literally only done 2 so far. I'm hoping that I can kind of use this blanket to hone this new technique and really figure it out. You can do it, I believe, with other stitches like single crochet as well. So the next time you're making a flat piece, or maybe even in the round, I think I saw a Moogly tutorial in the round too, consider starting with a standing double crochet instead of chain 3 and skipping the first stitch. Might be something that ups your crochet game like it did for me. So that tutorial will also be linked in the description box, along with everything else that I talked about today. Thank you so much for being here for another long episode. I am so excited about my new projects and couldn't wait to share them with you. And please mark your calendars for Tuesday and come join us for the Sock Week sponsor reveal. It's gonna be a big one. I'm so excited for it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.